Today's topic, was it love at first roll? Welcome to episode number 2 of the show, which now has a name, and that name is TABLEscraps. And apparently still has that same theme music that yesterday I thought I was going to ditch, but apparently is going to stick around. Well, for at least this episode. So we'll see what happens. Hey there, and welcome back to episode number 2 in our experimental month-long series we're doing. A series in which I will present a question that's been asked on our Board Game Geek forums, and I will discuss this question with the live streaming YouTube audience. And even better, today the show has a title. So we had our online poll yesterday where we had about 4 candidates for the title of the show. And as I'm sure you're actually already aware, today's show now has the title of TABLEscraps, which is kind of cool because we're discussing tabletop gaming topics, and we're kind of doing short little bite-sized discussions, kind of like scraps of discussions. So hopefully it's a really amazing pun that makes some sort of semblance of sense. Today's topic is one that was posted to us on our Board Game Geek forum, and there's a link to that down in the description below, so you can add your own questions and topic suggestions for future consideration on the show, and you can give a thumbs up vote for those that are already there, and the ones with the most thumbs ups are the ones that we feature on the show. Like I said, today's comes from Eddie Moon, who asks, when did you first realize that your love of gaming became more than just a casual activity? What has changed in your life as a result? And wow, that was actually a very, very good question because it was one that I thought was going to be really easy to answer. I thought it was just going to be a simple, off the top of my head answer. So first of all, for me, when did I realize it? Now, let me set the stage for anyone who's not familiar. If this is like the first episode of anything on Pair of Dice Paradise that you've seen, I have been producing board game content since 2014. I got back into the hobby 2012. The Dice Tower YouTube channel was my gateway back into the hobby, and I started collecting more games, and I always wanted to have kind of an artistic outlet, and I enjoyed filmmaking and stuff in high school and college. So I decided to use my enjoyment of the hobby as my platform for creating some new video content. And one thing has led to another, and now here we are watching this video. When did I realize that this was more than just a casual admiration of the hobby? Well, I was thinking about this, and I thought, was it in 2012 when I started watching board game media like the Dice Tower and Watch It Played and other things? I thought, no, it wasn't it. That was just something I was doing research and finding out more about these games and using to find new games to start off with. So it wasn't actually starting to watch board game media for me. So then I thought, well, was it when I actually started to purchase games again? Like I used my monthly budget, my monthly entertainment budget on games consistently. Was that the turning point? And I realized, no, not really. It was just an interesting, neat thing that I was investing in, and instead of I could go to the movies, I could go and buy candy, or I could. Apparently, that's still something as an adult I would still do. So that wasn't it either. Just buying the games wasn't it. So I thought, okay, it must have been when I started making the videos about board games. And then I realized, no, it wasn't that either. Even starting to produce the board game media and videos and starting the YouTube channel and everything, that still wasn't when, to me at least, it became more than just a casual hobby. It was still something I was interested in, but the filmmaking to me was still kind of a separate artistic endeavor that wasn't necessarily all about the board games. It was still more about the artistic outlet. So what was the turning point for me? I finally realized it. It was when I went to my very first local 3-day long board gaming convention here in town that they have every year. And when I remember discovering that this was a thing, and all of these other gamers were in town, and there was this entire convention just to play games all day for 3 days straight. And there were other people that were enjoying these games as much as me. And I just remember not being able to get enough and scooping up as much of this convention as I possibly could, and then traveling about 2 hours north later that year to go to another board gaming convention in the next state over, and then starting to think about Origins and Gen Con and BGG Con and Dice Tower Con. And I'd never been one who'd ever wanted to travel. I'm a homebody. I could stay at home for weeks at a time and be perfectly happy. But this was the first thing in my life that made me actually want to get on an airplane and go and meet more people and have more experiences. That moment, the interaction with the other gamers in the convention setting, and I'm one who isn't really fond of large crowds of other people or, getting to know other people. It had such an impact that even changed my perception of wanting to deal with and improve myself in the terms of being a little bit shy and introverted as well. It had that level of impact on my personality. That was the moment that I discovered that board gaming was more than just a casual hobby for me. And that's the way that it has changed my life. That, and two, it has allowed my incredibly amazing wife to allow me to take over one of the rooms in our house to turn into a makeshift studio. And so that's kind of special too. And it took over a little bit of our house. And I'm very, very grateful. And I rue the day that she realizes that I've taken over this room because she thinks that it's a pantry. So that's enough about my history. If you are following along in our live streaming chat, if you're watching this one actually streams live when we record the source footage, and you have a comment or question or statement related to this episode that you want to share, let's take about 5 minutes and let's see if we can see what some of the viewers are saying. First of all, we have Jeffrey Spenner, who is going to tell us that, for me, it was after my wife sustained a severe traumatic brain injury and we started using gaming as part of her cognitive recovery, not to mention helping me stay sane. Wow, that's awesome. That's actually really touching and really awesome, Jeffrey. I'm really proud that for the hobby, in a way, that it was able to be something that was able to have that level of impact on your life. Hopefully everyone that you've encountered online as well has been just as helpful and supportive in everything during your during this recovery period and everything, and since then as well. That is an amazing special story. So thank you for sharing that. Let's go to 20-Sided Turtle, who mentions that circa 1997, a coworker invited me to his place to play D&D with his group. Since then, most of my friends have been made through gaming of one sort or another. So 1997, so that's 20 years now that's had that level of impact on your life. And so I'm a little bit jealous because, I'm at the 5 or so year mark. So you got 4 times as much gaming experience and stories and new friends and stuff that you've made. And that is really awesome. Pith's Attic mentions, I started watching YouTube videos, listing my games on Board Game Geek, and participating in live shows. It all started to stay connected with certain friends, so that we all had something to talk about. So that's really a good point as well, is if you can find the communal interest with your friends, that can definitely be a big deciding factor. My best friend, Mick, who's been on a few episodes with me, we have our Venn diagram of our friendship. We have interests that don't overlap at all, but music is actually, and gaming to a certain extent, he's not as overboard as I am, but music is an overlapping interest, and he and I will discuss music a lot. We actually set up a little project we did where every day we picked a song and wrote and discussed it. Anyway, so when you can... Even if board gaming is a way to find another connection with friends or meet new friends, I have found that it can be a really strong one because board gaming is such a social activity. So the fact that you were able to benefit from that, Pith, is really, really special. Let's continue on here through our jumping comments with Homemaker Hobbies, who says, ours was more gradual. We've always had games, but they were more mainstream. Then 6 or 7 years ago, my hubby's cousin introduced us to Catan. And that opened a whole new world of gaming to us. That's something that I have heard and experienced myself time and time again. It seems like right around that that time of Catan hitting the scene, there was, of course, this explosion of the modern gaming scene. And it's neat to hear when someone has always been interested in the hobby, but when Catan and that era of games came along, it just caused an explosion of interest with them and their friends. So it's neat to see these milestones in the history of the hobby. Round to it joins us to post, my crush on gaming started 5 years ago when I had no expenses, a good job, and found the Dice Tower's abundance of reviews. That is the perfect storm. That is a recipe for a game collection if I ever heard one. Let's see what happened. I fell in love when I discovered game design and the industry at large. I guess the games are fun and all, but finding ways to be involved in the business and community really are what makes it exciting for me. You know what? I have to admit that has kind of been, of course, obviously, kind of my own experience as well. The games are neat and nice, but it's really the community and finding a way to get more involved in the community and the industry has really been an exciting part of it all for me. It's one of the first things in my life that has drawn me in that level. So round to it, I can totally see where you're coming from with that. Stefan mentions, I've been gaming on and off for about 20 years, mostly RPGs, sometimes also board games, but it didn't keep me hooked, and I dropped it for longer times in between. It definitely hooked fully with the modern game scene. It sounds like this is a similar scenario to what Homemaker Hobbies mentioned, kind of that modern scene that started with Catan, if I understand correctly. And so, like I said, it is definitely neat to see how so many people can be affected by one game coming out or one era of games, one new kind of idea in games can bring so many people together. I mean, that era has brought so many of us to this place right now in this chat together. It's really cool. Kabuki Kid mentions, I'd say that when I started to play D&D when I was 11 years old. Ooh, cool. That was really a milestone in my life. I dug into that game hardcore. And Kabuki Kid means it because she put it all in caps. And I think it made me less shy as a result. If you want to be specific to board games, it was when I played Risk with friends pretty much daily after school, like we were lunatics. That changed when Axis and Allies came out, and we played that nonstop. So that is really interesting to me because here we have, starting with D&D, an RPG environment. The RPG dovetailed for you, Kabuki, into the board gaming. It wasn't like a barrier that said, I'm just going to be interested in this type of gaming. It actually lent itself to the other type as well, into board games and all sorts of games. And that's really something that I think is exciting to see as well, because I know people that are kind of the both ways. Some people are not into RPGs or not into the board games. They're only into one or the other. And some people do kind of are interested and will try out both with varying levels. Your mileage may vary, of course, but it is neat to see the difference in what people are drawn into. Trevin says, I hate to admit it, but Will Wheaton's tabletop really helped me get back into the hobby seriously. Two things, Trevin. One, I think it's hilarious that anytime someone mentions tabletop to, the community of gamers, they kind of have to apologize for it, which is just silly. But I think it's so neat that there is something, tabletop helped shine such a light on current modern board gaming and bring it a little more into the mainstream. I was having a conversation just this morning before the show with some friends that were talking about tabletop, and because there was just International Tabletop Day last weekend, and a lot of people went down and did like their Twitch live streaming and stuff and talked to the Geek and Sundry crew. And they were talking about how neat it is that it has gained a foothold, and really tabletop was kind of an entry point for a lot of people. So no apologies needed. Final question that we have time for today is going to be from Christian Kelborg, who says, when I got back into the hobby, I took my wife with me into the hobby, and this is about 2 years ago. And then it's just exploded since then. Today, I'm one of the leaders of my local gaming group. We've talked about what has brought us into the hobby and how it's changed our lives. But board gaming is such a social activity. One thing I think is exciting to see and vital for the lifeblood of the hobby is to take that excitement that we have for it and get involved with the community and share it with others and bring them into it and show what modern board gaming has to offer now. So, Christian, I think the steps you've taken with being a leader in one of your local gaming groups, I think it's just a natural progression of what the hobby leads you to do next. It's not something that people have to do, and it's not something that's like, if you don't do this, you're not a real gamer, and you should be doing this, because some people are not in a social place personally to do that, but others want to. And I just think it's really neat to see the level of involvement that a lot of gamers do. It's really neat. It's really neat to see. Unfortunately, that's all there is to see this episode. There's a metric ton more comments we could go through right now, but if you had a comment that didn't get featured on the show, or you're just watching afterwards and you have something you want to add, please feel free to add it in the comments below, and we would love to continue the discussion there. And there is not the only place, because you can also join us on our Facebook and Twitter pages and continue the discussions about this and other topics there as well. Before we go, I just wanted to remind everyone that this episode was made possible by the viewers just like you who have been supporting Pair of Dice Paradise's fundraiser on our Pod Pledge crowdfunding website thingy. I really appreciate that. Until next episode, I've been Chaz Marler, along with the live streaming chat. Take care. We'll talk to you again soon. I got kind of a new little gizmo going on here. If this is working correctly, while we stream, you'll see the live streaming chat, so there's that. But if you're watching this after the stream, you won't see that at all, so there's no reason at all for me to even mention it. So I'll edit that out because it won't make sense.